Welcome to my channel. I create simulators and practice questions for the courses that I teach to reinforce what the students learn in the classroom, especially those that are working toward their certification. So let's look at a system that I created in subnetting. So this is a program I created. I named it Subnet Trainer. And what I'm trying to do here with the students is show them how to create a subnet mask. Well, let me show you something here of color coordinated what I have going on. The green is for the network bits, and the yellow is for the borrow bits. And the darks, these are for the host bits. So I have 25 bits turned on, and I had to borrow one from the last octet in order to get the subnet mask. The one that I borrow is in the 128 place value, so your subnet mask then would be 255, 255, 255. These are all of the ones we have turned on. And then the borrow octet, that would be the 128th place. That's the one bit we have turned on. If I go here, I could slide this bar. I could click the plus sign. I could use my keyboard. So I'm going to hit the plus sign and move it up one. Notice now I have a CIDR 26, which means I'm borrowing 2 bits. And 2 bits. And 2 bits, the place value would be 128 and 64. If I add 128 and 64, it's going to give me 192. And that would be my subnet mask for a CIDR 26. And so on. If I do a CIDR 27, I'm borrowing 3 bits now. And if I add these place values, that's all I'm doing. 128, 64, 32, it's going to give me a 224, which would be the last octet of my subnet mask, 255, 255, 224. If I take this up another one, which is a CIDR 28, and now I'm borrowing 4 bits because the 24 is turned on, and I'm borrowing 4 others. And all I'm doing now is looking at the place value, which is 128, 64, 32, 16. If I add those up, then my subnet mask is going to be, the last octet is going to be 240, and so on. If I go to 29, same thing. I'm borrowing 5 bits now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because 24 is turned on. I got 29, so I'm borrowing 5 bits, and I just look at the place value, 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, and I just add those up, and I get a 248. And same thing if I go to a CIDR 30, and if I add it up, it's going to give me a give me a subnet mask of 252. This is what we do in the classroom. So I use this system to kind of teach them how to get a subnet mask. And let's go to the practice mode now. In practice mode, I can let the system randomly pick me a CIDR, or I can choose one for myself. We're going to keep this at the random at CIDR 25. And what I'm saying here, what if I have a CIDR 25, what would be my subnet mask? So subnet mask would be 255, 255, 55. With a CIDR 25, the place value, if I add that up, is only at 1 place value because I'm only had to borrow 1 bit. That would be a 128 place value. So my subnet mask would be 128. Let's check it and see. And it says that is correct. So all I did was have to add the 128. There's no other bit turned on, only 25 bits. So let's go to the next. The next level says, what is the subnet mask for a CIDR 29? So the system randomly picked me a CIDR 29, and they want to know what's the subnet mask for that. So 255, 255, 55 for a 29. So now I'm probably I have 24, and to get 29, I've got to borrow 5 bits. So 5 for 29 probably going to be, see, 224, 240, probably going to be 248. I'm thinking 248 for a CIDR 29. Let's see, and let's check it. 248 is correct. And all I'm doing, I'm just adding up these 5 bits that I turn on: 128, 64, 32, 16, 8. Same thing we did on the other side, and that gives me a CIDR 248. CIDR 29 get me a subnet mask of 248. Let's go to next. Let it pick another one for me. This time it's picking a CIDR 26, and my subnet mask is going to be 255, 55, 255, and for a 26, that means I'm borrowing 2 bits from the last octet, and the 2 bits, that means I have to add the 128 and the 64, which should give me a 192. Let's check, and 192 it is. That's how you can determine the subnet mask, letting this system now randomly pick the CIDR, and then let the student tell me what the subnet mask would be. So let's do maybe one more mode, maybe the plan mode. We'll do a couple of these, then we'll come back for another video on some of the other ones. In the plan mode, I'm saying this is my network. I have a CIDR of 27, and let's start this plan, and it's saying what is the network. So the network is going to be 192.168.1.0 would be the network. Let's check it and see. That is the network. Now it said, what is the first user, a first user host? So if my network is 192.168.1.0, then my first user is going to be, for this particular network, my first user is going to be a 1, should be. Let's check it and see, and that is correct. Next, it said, what's the last user? So let's put the network in 192.168.1. So we know the network is 0, and we know our CIDR is 27. And so we know with a 27, we're working with a block size of 32. And it says, what's the last user? So in order to get that, it's good to know that we're working with a 32. So we back 1 off of 32. That means the broadcast is going to be a 31, and the last user should be a 30. Let's check that out and see, and that is correct. Now it's saying, let's go to the next one. Now it's saying, what is the broadcast of that network? So 192.168.1, and the broadcast should be a 31, since the next network is a 32. And let's check, and that is correct. So now it's saying, because I'm doing 3 subnets here. Now I'm at the second subnet. Don't forget, we're using a CIDR 27, a block size 32. So the network here would be 192.168.1. And this is the second network. Now we're talking 32, because I'm using a block size of 32. I mean, I'm incrementing by 32. The first network was 0. 192.168.1.32. Let's check and see. That is the network. Now it said, what's the first user of this network? So for this network, 192.168.1, so the first user, since the network was 32, first user is going to be a 33. Let's check that and see, and that is correct. So now what's the last user? So 192.168.1. So the last user, so now we are using a block size of 32. We are on network 32. So we go 32 out. That means that the next network is going to be 64. So the last user, if the network is 64, then the broadcast will be 63. So the last user will be 62. If I'm correct, let's check that and see. and that is correct. So the broadcast is 192.168.1. Since I know the next network is going to be, or this network is, well, the next one is going to be 64. So the broadcast would be 63, hopefully. Broadcast would be 63, and that is correct. So next we are doing the last network. Okay, so let's see what the network is, 192.168.1. This network should be, I'm incrementing by 32 because I'm using a CIDR 27. This network should be 64 if I'm correct. So let's check that and see. 64 is correct. Remember, I started at network 0, 32, and 64 because I'm using a CIDR 27, so I'm incrementing by 32 each time. All right, so the first user for this network, 192.168.1, and the network is 64, so the first user is going to be 65, if I'm correct. And 65 it is for the first user. What is the last user? Okay, 192.168.1, and the last user. So if I add 32 to 64, that will run out to about 96, I believe. That would be like the next network. So 96. So it said the last user, 96, 95, 94. So the last user should be, I think, 94, because 96, 95, 94. Let's check and see here. And 94 is correct for the last user. All I'm doing is just incrementing by 32. Since I'm working with a 64, if I add 32 to 64, that gives me a 96. I just back off of 1 and 2. So that's the last user. Now it's asking me for the broadcast, 192.168.1. So the broadcast, since I know that the next network is going to be 96, because I just add 32 to it. If the next network is 96, then the broadcast for this network would be 95, hopefully 95, and that is correct. And as you can see here, we did all three networks. Network 1 was 0, network 2 was 32, and network 3 was 64. These are some of the things we do in the classroom in learning the subnet. Now this is a fixed subnet length. We also do variable subnet length. So stay tuned. We will be back for another video on one of the other things that we learn in the classroom.